Throughout American history, U.S. presidents have been both revered and criticized, their personalities and policies often distilled into memorable monikers by supporters, opponents, and the media. Join Facts First as we present the worst presidential nicknames and the true meaning behind them. John Adams, his rotundity. John Adams, the second U.S. president, played a pivotal role in the American Revolution and was a staunch advocate for the Declaration of Independence. Serving under Washington, he was the first vice president of the United States. During his presidency, he navigated the quasi-war with France and established the Department of the Navy. His signing of the Alien and Sedition Acts, however, remains controversial. A Federalist, Adams had a significant impact on the nation's early foundation. His rotundity mocked Adams for wanting a grand title for the presidency and also alluded to his round physical stature. James Madison, Little Jimmy. The fourth president, James Madison, is often called the father of the Constitution for his pivotal role in drafting it. He also co-wrote the Federalist Papers, advocating its ratification. His presidency was dominated by the War of 1812 against Britain. Madison faced challenges, including the burning of the White House, but the war ended in 1814 with the Treaty of Ghent. His leadership helped solidify the nation's standing internationally. Little Jimmy made light of his diminutive physical stature. John Quincy Adams, Old Man Eloquent. The sixth president, John Quincy Adams, was the son of John Adams. Before his presidency, he crafted the Monroe Doctrine as Secretary of State, warning European nations against interfering in the Western Hemisphere. As president, he advocated for modernizing the U.S. economy and promoting education. After his presidency, he had a distinguished career in Congress fighting against slavery. Old Man Eloquent combined a nod to his age with praise for his powerful oratory, especially against slavery. And although it wasn't an insulting nickname per se, it wasn't exactly a cool one, and it's likely his opponents used it sarcastically. Andrew Jackson, King Andrew I. The seventh president, Andrew Jackson, was a war hero, notably for the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. As president, he championed the common man and was founder of the Democratic Party. He controversially implemented the Indian Removal Act, leading to the Trail of Tears. His battles against the Second Bank of the U.S. were significant, reflecting his mistrust of the institution. King Andrew I was a nickname given by critics who believed he overstepped his powers, especially with his frequent use of vetoes. Martin Van Buren, Martin Van Ruin. The eighth president, Martin Van Buren, was a key organizer of the Democratic Party. He faced the Panic of 1837, a major financial crisis, and his presidency was marred by economic hardship. Van Buren opposed the annexation of Texas, fearing it would spark a war with Mexico and exacerbate sectional tensions. Despite being a one-term president, his political strategies influenced the Democratic Party for decades. Martin Van Ruin played on his surname, blaming him for the nation's financial turmoil. Millard Fillmore, the Wool Carter president. The 13th president, Millard Fillmore, assumed office after Zachary Taylor's death. Fillmore supported the Compromise of 1850, aiming to maintain a fragile balance between the free and slave states. He also sent Commodore Perry to Japan, opening the previously isolated nation to the West. His support for the controversial Fugitive Slave Act, however, tarnished his legacy. The Wool Carter president referred to his early job in the wool industry, highlighting his humble origins. Again, not the meanest nickname, but certainly far from the coolest sounding. Franklin Pierce, Purcy. The 14th president, Franklin Pierce, faced regional tensions over slavery. The Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed territories to decide on slavery via popular sovereignty, exacerbated conflicts. Pierce's foreign policies were more successful, with the Gadsden Purchase acquiring land from Mexico and the Ostend Manifesto aimed at buying Cuba from Spain. Purcy was used by Northerners, turning his name into a diminutive form to criticize his perceived leniency on the slavery issue. Andrew Johnson, Sir Veto. The 17th president, Andrew Johnson, came to power after Lincoln's assassination. He faced tumultuous times during Reconstruction post-Civil War. Johnson's policies favored quick restoration of the seceded states, but his leniency towards the South alienated him from radical Republicans. He narrowly escaped removal from office after impeachment. Sir Veto referred to his frequent use of the veto, especially against Reconstruction legislation. Though for a president who was impeached, he seemed to get off with a fairly mild nickname. James Buchanan, Old Buck and Old Public Functionary. James Buchanan, the 15th president, struggled with growing tensions over slavery, which culminated in the secession of 7 southern states by the time he left office. His handling of the Dred Scott decision and the Utah War are notable aspects of his presidency. Buchanan is often criticized for his inability to prevent the Civil War. Old Buck and Old Public Functionary were not meant kindly, referencing his age and ineffectual leadership. Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick. Richard Nixon, the 37th president, is notably remembered for his diplomatic achievements, like détente with the Soviet Union and opening diplomatic relations with China. He also initiated the Environmental Protection Agency, but his presidency was overshadowed by the Watergate scandal, leading to his resignation. Critics often referred to him as Tricky Dick due to perceived deceptions. Now let's get into a few of the cooler nicknames. George Washington, father of his country. George Washington, the first U.S. president, was a military general who led the revolution against British rule. His leadership was vital to the establishment of the U.S. He presided over the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and set many presidential precedents. Under his leadership, the Bill of Rights was adopted, ensuring citizens' rights and liberties. He declined a third term, solidifying the 2-term precedent until it became law. Father of his country was a tribute to his foundational role in the birth and establishment of the United States. Thomas Jefferson, man of the people. The third president, Thomas Jefferson, was also the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. He championed individual rights and religious freedom. His presidency is marked by the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the U.S., and the Lewis and Clark Expedition. He founded the University of Virginia and was deeply involved in various intellectual endeavors. Man of the people represents his democratic ideals and efforts to give power to common citizens. Theodore Roosevelt, trustbuster. Serving as the 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt was known for his progressive policies. He expanded national parks and monuments, championing conservation. Internationally, he brokered the end of the Russo-Japanese War, earning a Nobel Peace Prize. He also oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, enhancing global trade routes. Trustbuster reflects his aggressive approach to breaking up large corporate monopolies to promote fair competition. Ronald Reagan, the Gipper. The 40th president, Ronald Reagan, was previously an actor and governor of California. He implemented Reaganomics, emphasizing tax cuts and deregulation. Reagan increased military spending, hastening the end of the Cold War. His tenure saw the fall of the Berlin Wall and improved U.S.-Soviet relations. The Gipper stemmed from his role as George Gipp in the film Knute Rockne, All-American. Barack Obama, no drama Obama. The 44th president, Barack Obama, was the first African-American president. He signed the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, into law, expanded LGBTQ+ rights, and re-established diplomatic ties with Cuba. Under Obama, Osama bin Laden was eliminated, and the Paris Agreement on climate change was signed. No drama Obama speaks to his reputation for maintaining a calm and even-tempered demeanor in various situations. Now it's time to hear from you. Who had the worst nickname in your opinion? Let us know in the comments section below.